feared and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
We are chasing the pennant tonight and every damn night because the Phillies may never lose again. Seriously, they may never lose again. I am Shane of Chasing the Pennant Pod, and I am joined with two of our members today for a doubleheader, split squad, if you will, here in the CTP team. I'm joined with Biscuit over there, sporting the banner, which we still love. How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, Shane. You know, you thought after going 9-14 that the Phillies might just be out of this thing. And in Philly fashion, the Phillies are never out of it. And I guess if there's anything to think positively about this team, they always remain to keep our hopes up. And here we are back at 500, a chance to sweep the Braves to, I believe this is our last series against them. So really, this is like a statement game. And it would also be the game where they get over 500. So to me, this is probably the biggest game of the season. So I'm hype.
Yeah, to this point, it very much so is. And look, a statement game against a team that is, let's put this all aside for a second, our fandom. The Braves are a significantly better and more complete baseball team than what the Phillies are. So to come ahead and sweep them after the losing streak we had, this is the biggest game and series to this point of the season. Then we are joined with Andrew over there. Andrew, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Very excited to talk about this nice win streak, as you guys mentioned, and I think let's thank the Nationals for that because they tried to call out the Phillies with how easy of an opponent we were, and we have not lost a game since they put out that tweet. So I think we need to thank the Nationals a little bit for I think we kind of took that as motivation, and obviously we're playing a lot better all around the game, and I think one interesting thing too is how well the team responded to that Girardi player conference after the game. I don't know if you guys saw that, but he called them in after that loss, and now they haven't lost since that meeting either. So very fun times right now.
Look, I'm so glad that fun baseball is back. Well, for the most part, the winning streak has been fun. It's still been tough. But yeah, I mean, look, that we've done a lot of ripping of Girardi at this point. We've been less than pleased and less than impressed with what he's brought. But there aren't a lot of managers that go ahead and can gather that kind of a response and a kind of a flip the switch, if you will. And we certainly weren't going to get that from Cap as much as I love him. So that's a huge thing for sure. We mentioned that the season, I mean, I don't know. We may never just win one, lose one, win one, lose one ever again. At this point, we're going to go on a streak of losses that are going to make us want to jump off the Ben Franklin. And then we're going to win 7 games to bring us right on back and think that we're the best damn team in baseball. And we very well may tomorrow start losing again. We have no idea. So we got to live in this moment. But while we're living in the moment of all these wins, the 5 wins come after a loss in Boston, 2 horrific losses, and 1 lost testicle in Toronto. Well, kind of Toronto, in Buffalo. And then the first 2 games of the Braves series. All of those games, Philadelphia Phillies sported at least a 2-run lead at some point in all of those games, and we lost all of them. That brought us to the final game of that Atlanta series where we do pull out a win, and then through that Washington series, which there have been a lot of awesomely run team, whatever, Facebooks and Twitters. That was not great. That was corny as hell. We were a terrible team for a decade. Everyone knows that they can beat. We don't think we could beat damn near anybody over the last 8 to 10 years. The hell are they talking about? I hated him. I hated him so much. I hate the Nationals. I think I hate them more than I hate the Mets. And that's saying something, especially for you, Biscuit. Then we go ahead and we take the first 2 games here, or against Atlanta as well, with a chance to sweep that one tonight at 7:08, the official start time, the official first pitch for that game. So let's kind of go through this winning streak and what kind of turned some things around for us. I mentioned that we had the lead in seemingly every game in the history of baseball games with this team. And we just have not been able to, shocker, compete with the Matt Klentak built and kind of left alone bullpen. He went out there, he made some moves that I have a big fucking problem with, but we'll get to them in a bit. They have made a difference. We've won 5 games. So, Biscuit, what has been your early view of the additions that have come in for this Philadelphia Phillies bullpen?
Say what you will about the trades. Over the last 5 games, you've really seen a difference with this bullpen. I don't have the numbers exactly in front of me, but I believe they pitched to an earned run average under 3. Actually, yeah. I believe it was in the low 2s. Yeah, so look, what was it, Andrew?
It was 2.12 in the last 5 games.
It shows. Obviously, Workman has not been perfect. In fact, he's probably, looked the most pathetic out of everyone they've rolled out over the last week or so, because he really just looks like he just wants to blow games for the Phillies. But other than that, look, Heath Hembree has added a little bit more. Neris looks like he's coming to life. Tommy Hunter has really been, since he, did that whole press conference and showed off his, Tommy Hunter muscles. He's been better. So I think now, it's not going to be perfect. This bullpen's not going to be perfect unless they really continue to add between, the rest of the day today and tomorrow at the trade deadline. But if you could just get a little more out of that group, it shows this week. It will pay dividends. So for me, this winning streak has all been about them just being able to keep the Phillies in games and allowing the offense to do their thing. And it's working out.
Yeah, man. It certainly is. And it hasn't been perfect. It has not always been clean. The one arm that I think we all assumed was going to be the arm. The other guys were kind of, a DFA'd guy, which is amazing that we traded for that. And then another throw-in piece out in Boston. And Biscuit, you mentioned it. Like, Workman's been the most concerning, and he was supposed to be the closest to a sure thing. So that's super upsetting. That curveball seems to never want to bite. Andrew and I talked about that a little bit earlier today, just, chatting. What has been your early impression of Workman so far, Andrew? I know we spoke a little bit about it earlier, but for all the listeners, what are you kind of seeing out of him?
I just see a guy he just finds ways to get the job done. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be unstressful. It's gonna give us a ride through the 9th inning, and you're gonna be sitting on the edge of your seat because, like you just mentioned, that curveball is never breaking. Like, nobody. It doesn't seem like he's ever going to strike anybody out. The curveball is not fooling anybody. It just sits there. And I guess because it's probably a little slower than most or whatever, guys are way out in front of it. And if they're not getting hit out of it, it seems like they just pop everything up. So just the timing's off on him somehow. But no, I'm concerned for him because I think the problem is when you're in a season like this, when you're strictly just facing the East teams and he comes from an East team, these guys already know him. So to me, it's almost like, in a way, kind of like Neris. Once these guys figure out the timing, I feel like it's just going to blow up. And that's the thing you see with Neris is, he struggles a lot when he faces the NL East teams because as good as that splitter can be at times, the guys that figure it out are the ones they don't swing, and then he falls behind, and then his fastball isn't fast enough to get by anybody, so then they're able to time it up pretty well. So I think that's my concern with Workman going forward. Yeah, he's able to figure it out right now because we faced the teams like the Braves and Nationals, who these guys haven't faced him yet. But once they have the time to start figuring him out, that's when it's going to start to concern me because, yeah, Workman had a really good September last year, but this year he kind of struggled a little bit at times against some of those AL East teams. So to me, again, it's all about timing. But Biscuit, what did you have to say?
To me, it just looks like he hangs everything right over the plate. And I'm not someone, to be fair, I'm not someone who really picks up on those things with pitchers very well. So to me, if it's that noticeable, it must be pretty fucking bad. But it just seems like everything just seems so elevated with him. And the curveball, and you brought it up too with timing, that seems just because it's kind of more of a slower pitch. That's really the only thing keeping him alive at this point is because hitters can't seem to really get the timing right on it. But other than that, when as you guys mentioned, as more people see the pitch and shit like that, he's going to get rocked. And I just don't see a situation where that isn't going to be an issue for this team in the near future because teams are going to get comfortable seeing him. But, it just sucks. It just sucks because it's just not a great trade. And to give up what you gave up, I know Nick Pavetta's Nick Pavetta, but a true piece that could have been mid-rotation or back-end bullpen guy like Connor Siebold, it's mind-boggling.
I just think we were that desperate for the pieces, so I think we kind of had to make that. The one that kind of gets me a little more upset about is the David Hale trade because, I know it wasn't the biggest name prospect, as you mentioned in the chat, Shane, but, like, he clearly had some type of potential there with the numbers he was providing. And the fact that you make that move and we have yet to see him pitch. Like, I don't know. He hasn't come into a game yet since making that trade. I think it's been over a week now. So I'm curious why they made that trade for him not to get any time yet. Like, it just seems odd to me.
No one makes that trade except for Matt Klentak.
He's nervous.
That's well, I mean, he has to be.
He's managing. He's GMing now for his job, and it's very evident that anything that looks like it could be a win now type move, regardless of the long-term ramifications, it looks like he's going to pull the trigger because he knows that if the Phillies don't make the playoffs, it's going to be a mess for him. And there's no manager to be a scapegoat anymore.
Yeah, you used a good word right there, is the scapegoat this year. Like last year, and that's probably why he wanted to keep Kapler around before Middleton forced him to get rid of him, is because he was able to use Kapler as the guy to get blamed for everything. And now that Kapler didn't have the resume that Girardi had, obviously, to call Klentak out. And, I mean, we all heard it after those 2 Toronto blown games. Girardi flat out called him out. He's like, he basically paraphrasing. He basically said, I can only use the guy that Matt put out here for me. It's Matt's job to basically make a trade and get guys in here. So Girardi has the World Series. He has the resume to call him out like that. So he can use the manager as the scapegoat this time.
No, you can. And I think, and this will be something, it's like a tangent rant or tangential rant, but John Middleton's the Philadelphia Phillies problem. I genuinely do not believe that the Phillies will ever win again with him involved in any decision, and that decision includes cutting checks. Like, I just don't need to ever hear him speak again or be involved. Because he entered this season with Matt Klentak as a GM with, we joke about Alvarez right now having one testicle. Well, Matt Klentak doesn't have any. John Middleton came in here and just said, look, man, I make the big decisions. You're just going to sit here and man a title. And that's really all he's there for. And that's frustrating because at this point, I think that a lot of these decisions that we have not enjoyed or not fully understood, maybe they wouldn't have ever happened had there was a guy that had more pedigree in that position, and not a Matt Klentak. But look, they could talk about pitching later tonight in the split squad doubleheader here for CTP. They could talk about all the bad shit. We're on a 5-game winning streak, so we got to talk about some of the good things. So let's start with game 1 of that winning streak here, and we're going to start with Workman. In that ninth inning where we were first exposed to second time we were exposed to his horrifically not breaking curveball. That's not even a sentence. But Freddie Freeman, my favorite Brave ever, laces a ball into the gap. Roman Quinn, one of my least favorite Phillies in the history of Phillies, makes a phenomenal play. Gets the ball into Didi, quickly becoming one of my favorite Philadelphia Phillies. Then feeds a perfect one-hop to Andrew Knapp, my absolutely least favorite Philly, though I am very grateful for his presence this year for this play and many others to this point. And he hangs on for the tag, who tags Dansby Swanson, a guy with whom I fucking love. So many things went up and down in my emotions throughout this thing, through this play. But what a way to sit there and kick off a winning streak and to get out of that kind of depth that you were in with look, Workman came in, pitched poorly in his first outing, pitched poorly again in his second and gets away with it. You lose a doubleheader in a AAA park against a basically AAA roster. You lose to Boston, who has pitching that kind of mirrors your own, and then decide those are the pitchers I'd like to attack and bring into Philadelphia. Why not? And you get to win like this. And that's a big, big lift. So one of the things, that I kind of want to talk about from that game is the defense. At this point, it seems as though, look, the offense is going to have to score 6, 7, 8 runs a night to give us a shot. Our pitching just ain't there. But in previous years, especially during the Gabe era, we had guys playing out of position out of necessity. This is, far and away the best defensive roster that we've been able to put out there. And it is plays like this, the unusual plays that you see made, that really clean up for some of these pitchers' mistakes. How important is it to you guys throughout this winning streak and then going forward in 2020 to sit there and see guys like Didi Gregorius out there? Even Roman Quinn, who can't ever make a play on a ball in the air in his life and make the correct route, but for a play like that, made a perfect one. How important is it for you guys to see the defense go out there and kind of steal you games when your pitchers can't? Andrew, go to you.
It's very important. And like you mentioned, the last couple of years, that's been one of our biggest issues is not only has the pitching not been there, but you're giving the good teams extra outs. Just look at this year, the difference of when we've performed well defensively. And when you clean that up, you limit the outs you're allowing the other teams to have. And you limit the at-bats of some of the good players rather than giving those guys extra at-bats and stuff. And you saw it. And he's a young guy, so I expect him to continue to work. But you kind of saw it early on when Alec Boehm first came up. Obviously, he's been hitting phenomenally, but his defense obviously has not been there where we all would like it to be. We knew it would be an issue when he first comes up, and it has been. And I'm blanking on the one game it was, but I think it was one of the first 2 Braves games we lost. He had 3 errors, I think, in 1 inning or something like that. Mm-hmm. And essentially, you end up giving up a lot of runs that inning, and then you end up losing because, not only is that bad for the inning itself, but it's such a momentum deflator. It just deflates the whole team in general because, when it turns into a big inning like it did, you find yourself falling behind a lot, and that kind of deflates the offense as well. So it's huge because, again, not only is it important to make the plays just for the standpoint of limiting runs and outs and runs and stuff from the other team, but I believe that a defensive play can really spark your offense just because a big momentum play, especially when it ends an inning or something, gets everyone hyped up and stuff and goes into that next inning. I really think in this case, you mentioned the great play there from Quinn ending in that Knapp catch. I think it really sparked the team overall. When do we see Andrew Knapp show that kind of emotion? What he did when he held on and made that tag, he jumps up.
Every time he leaves the barber's chair. That's it.
He makes that play, and I think it clearly gave the team momentum. And I already mentioned that Girardi, he had that talk with him after the loss on Saturday night going into that game Sunday, and it clearly made a difference. So I think that overall sparked everything. And again, when those plays happen, not only does it allow the pitchers, I think one big thing too is it allows the pitchers not to feel like, okay, I got to make a perfect pitch every time to get this guy out or strike the batter out, because it allows them to say, okay, I got a team behind me that can make the plays, whether it's an easy play or a hard play, so I can just pitch to contact even and just get the out that way.
So the reason I mentioned the defensive thing and the fact that a defensive play, closed out our first win in this series is since that moment, our defense has made me want to vomit. It is not the way that our defense should be looking when you take a look at the guys who are here. But there are so many different things that we're going to start seeing, especially as this trade deadline comes and passes. There are changes to be made that will make that defense that much better. Alec Boehm is, horrifically bad defensively at third base. It's okay. He hits the shit out of the baseball. He's never an easy out. That's great. Rhys Hoskins has costed Didi Gregorius now 3 errors to his resume in the last 2 weeks alone. That never needs to happen. There is a literal drill that first basemen do to receive a ball. They spray paint a circle in the grass right before that dirt in the cutout that says, hey, if there's a ball in the hole to the shortstop's right, this is where they're going to end up bouncing that baseball. You need to be able to see that and make this play. It's literally the easiest play outside of just a throw from a second baseman for a first baseman to make. He has made an error on all 3 of those. And to me, I sit there and I think, man, 29 other organizations looked at Alec Boehm and said, you're never going to stick at third. Rhys Hoskins can't. The dude's a total liability at this point, at first base as well. making errors late in ball games now too, both with his glove and the arm. At what point do you start taking a look at, especially if Kingery's going to play, throw Kingery at second, or honestly, I'd put Kingery at third because Gene Segura blows there too. But the whole benefit or the whole point of this kind of argument and stance is if the offense scores you 8 runs a night like it had in the first game of this Washington series, and your pitching's going to be okay, your defense really has to be the thing that's consistent and electric. And they have the pieces to do it, but they're not played in the right place right now. When you have Rhys Hoskins and Alec Boehm, one of them has to DH, the other one has to play first base, and no one ever needs to go to third base again of the two of them. Well, not that Rhys does. Your defensive lineup, in a perfect world with the pieces that we currently have, what do you think is the safest option right now that will limit these pitchers' pitch counts and keep them deep into games? They won't have a bunch of unearned runs, and we won't have the defensive lapses that we saw a lot during the Gabe era. Biscuit, what would you do with this defensive, kind of alignment at this point?
For the sake of keeping bats in,
that's what's hard.
Yeah, I think Didi's fine at short.
Of course he is.
He's obviously he's the best one. Look, as much as I think Rhys has made defensive lapses as of late, I think he's looked better overall at times. I think my biggest concern is really third base because Alec Boehm has not looked good. He's looked better as of late, but still it's not, a ball gets hit to him. You shouldn't feel as concerned as you get, but you still get concerned. Like, it's bad. And you talked about it. It's not great. Andrew, you talked about it as well with the 3 errors in the game against the Braves. If first base is in Alec Boehm's home in the future, that really only leaves the DH, which I guess is fine for now. But I also think with Alec Boehm, just, given that he's a pretty athletic guy, he has an athletic build, I could see him either A, getting better at playing third base to the point where he's at least serviceable, or B, it doesn't work at third and he could be a first baseman. Now, where does that leave Rhys Hoskins? I think, that's still some soul searching right there on what his long-term role is with this organization. Like, the guy's clearly, a good clubhouse guy. He, is undoubtedly the leader of this team. But at the same time, you'd expect more power from him. He doesn't really, hit for an average or anything like that. His only real skill set seems to be that he gets on base at this point. So for me, I think long-term, he really does look like the odd man out, especially if you think Kingery is the real deal long-term, if you think, Bryson Stott's going to come up and be what he is, and if you think Boehm is either not a third baseman or a first baseman or a DH, like, it's going to be different. It's going to look different, and I think it'll look different within the next year or so, really.
So one of the things that I have noticed when watching Alec Boehm play is he has a real knack for being able to track down the fly balls that kind of go in, either in foul territory down the line, or even those things that do remain fair. Those over the shoulder plays aren't easy. I could see him going to left field and pulling a Ryan Braun. Braun was similar, terrible at third base, just was never going to stick there. Look, Kutch, who has gotten better as of late over the last 2-3 weeks. Obviously not the long-term guy out there in left field. To me, I'd be comfortable trying him out there in left field if it meant that Rhys Hoskins was truly stepping up to be the legitimate first baseman of the future again, where we began to kind of doubt that. But this last week and a half, we've seen Rhys Hoskins be, closer to the Rhys Hoskins of old. But Andrew, what would your thoughts be on giving him the shot out there in left field at this point?
I wouldn't be opposed to it, but it wouldn't be my first choice just because it seems like this is something the Phillies always do, is they never let the guy stay in his true natural position. And this shows the lack of development we have in the organization. I mean, you look at all the recent guys we have, and I know skill level is not like eye to eye here between Cody Ashley and
Love Cody.
Alec Boehm, but like it's like he was a natural third baseman, and they had, instead of getting rid of him or Franco when they had the two guys there coming up at the same time and moving on and maybe try to get another piece, they try to move these guys to the outfield. That obviously didn't work out. We saw him try to move Hoskins to the outfield. That didn't work out. So I don't know. I'm kind of feel like it's old at this point, the amount of times the Phillies try to move these guys, because I don't trust our. And I don't know, maybe I know we have new coaches this year, so I guess it could be different. But I just don't trust the Phillies system to make it work, like the Brewers made it work with Ryan Braun. I've seen it before with this team, and it just doesn't work out the best way. And I don't think we have a true DH yet, and I know that can change in the offseason, but I don't think Bruce is the long-term option. This year now, especially with Bruce being gone or hurt right now, they have a new DH. I feel like almost every night, and we all love the Gosselin story to start the season, but I think he's slowly coming back down to earth, and you'll see that kind of pave the way here in the next coming days or whatever. So I think you throw Alec Boehm at the DH spot for the rest of the year. This year, go with Kingery or Segura at third, and then go from there. It'll be interesting to see what we do with the deadline too. Maybe add a defensive piece just for the late innings or something like that. But I'd be more okay with it in the off season. Obviously, you get to work with him and stuff, but especially for this year, I just either let him ride it out at third or move him to DH. I think would be the two best options.
Yeah, and I think that's fair, and I think that we obviously understand that the DH seems inevitable at this point, that it's going to remain in both leagues, despite our best efforts and arguments as to why it should not. But in this case for the Philadelphia Phillies, it really does help them out. If you're going to sit here and have a Rhys Hoskins and Alec Boehm, corner of the infield, the DH really, really helps you out. And then if we're going to do the right thing in signing JT Realmuto, which we absolutely should, that gives him the occasional, blow to his knees, but keeps him in the lineup, keeps his bat in the lineup. So look, as much as I hate it, as much as most of us hate it, the DH in the end is probably going to work for the Alec Boehms and Rhys Hoskins and even JTs.
And I love it for that reason alone. It really is, as a traditionalist, I'm not really a traditionalist, but for you guys that are, it sucks, but for a team like the Phillies, it really does just help. It's not like we're a team where we couldn't find guys who would, not thrive in that role, because look how Girardi's used the position. We've had many different guys in that spot, and I think it's great. And I think, obviously with pitchers not batting anymore, and there takes away that element of strategy, but I think that's a way to strategize in its own self too. Like, different matchups. You don't need one set guy in the position or in the designated hitter spot to make it a productive, spot in the lineup. And I think that's what the Phillies have shown, using it as ways to get guys like JT or Kutch off their feet, or Boehm, so he's still batting the lineup, but not, and playing third
in the field.
Yeah, I was going to say, you had the great analogy. But it's surely more comforting knowing that the Phillies have a welcome problem, instead of, having to not have that DH spot and think, well, if one of these guys can only play first base, then someone's got to go. And, maybe someone will move down the line in the future, but you don't need to entertain that right now because you have a way to play them all.
Yeah, for 2020, at least at this point, until, 4 or 5 o'clock tomorrow, whatever time it ends up being, when we fully know what the roster is going to look like for the remainder of the season. We have spots for everyone. So it works. But with that deadline approaching, we've already seen us attack the bullpen, and we've seen things all across baseball happening at this point. It's a far more active deadline than I would have anticipated. So I would, at this point, continue to assume that there are going to be moves made by the Philadelphia Phillies to continue to bolster this bullpen, and then attack some other needs as well. One interesting thing that Salisbury tweeted out today is the fact that 2016 first overall pick Mickey Moniak was added to the 60-man, which makes him eligible in these trades at this point. I have a particular stance on this. I believe that it is more likely with the insignificant playing time that Adam Hazley has kind of had this year in 2020, both due to injury-related reasons and the fact that Girardi, I don't know, fucking hates him for some reason. I believe that it would be more so for later outfield insurance, and that Hazley would be a piece to move because he is a far more attractive piece at this point. A proven major league player who at the very least is a fourth outfielder and I believe still could start in most outfields across baseball. But look, there's a ton of interesting storylines to follow. Kingery has been atrocious for almost a full calendar year at this point. After his hot start last year, the guy's fallen completely off and he looks completely lost. I know he had a big hit the other night and hopefully that turns him around, but he just looks lost. So going into this deadline, I want to know a couple things. I want to know, what's the position of need that you're attacking, if you have a name in mind for that position, and is there anyone who is truly untouchable who is a legitimate trade piece at this point? So Bryce isn't going anywhere. Guys like that aren't going anywhere, but for the Kingerys of the world. So Andrew, I'll start with you, since you were the one that shared that original tweet from you got it from Alex Carr, but same thing. What do you kind of picture the Phillies looking like tomorrow?
Personally, I don't think the Phillies are done. As Biscuit alluded to earlier, I think Clentak realizes he's basically managing for his job at this point. He's got to make sure this team gets into the playoffs. I mean, now they're in a playoff spot because of this win streak, but I think I did when I did my Tuesday show with the other show I do. We were on there talking about how at the time we were kind of seeing where the playoff matchups were, and on Tuesday the Phillies were out of a playoff spot while the Giants were in a playoff spot. And I was just trying to imagine the city if Kapler got into the playoffs and the Phillies didn't. That'd be a whole mess in itself. So I think Clentak really realizes where his job could potentially be at. So I don't think the Phillies are done yet. My positions to target is I would like to see the Phillies add a true closer to the roster. Unfortunately, the guy I wanted was Trevor Rosenthal. He gets moved to San Diego, who looks like a true contender right now, as they're making move after move right now. They're a fun team to watch, and they're being aggressive. And then the next guy I was thinking about was Michael Givens, who now got traded from Baltimore to Colorado, another playoff contender. So these guys are all on the move. So I turned to another one, a trade. I don't know if you guys saw this. Alex Carr actually mentioned this one as well. Because I think it was Ken Rosenthal put an initial tweet out that a lot of teams are calling the Brewers, for Josh Hader and stuff. And I don't think Josh Hader is realistic for the Phillies. I don't think we'd give up what it would take to bring him in here.
Also a terrible human.
Yeah, I don't want him either. So I'd stay away from him. But another couple names that he mentioned from the Brewers bullpen that I think would be interesting would be a Corbin Burns or David Phelps, he alluded to, who's having a really good year under a 3 ERA. And you could also package him with Brett Anderson, which I thought would be an interesting move. And he mentioned how that would have the Phillies written all over it because Brett Anderson would be a lefty out of the pen, a long inning relief guy there that you're lacking. And then if you have to have a spot start with the amount of doubleheaders that are happening right now, you can use him in that spot as well. And then get David Phelps out of that trade as well. So that if I think he was just saying that would be a good move for the Phillies. I don't think he was trying to speculate any talks of that starting. But I would actually like to see those two names kind of brought in. I think that would do this team well, especially kind of ensure that bullpen piece even more. I don't know if Phelps would be a true closer. I think they'd stick with Workman, so it'd be interesting how that plays out throughout the year. But I'd either go, you gotta get bullpen help, another arm or two, with the potential of a starter as well. And then I'd like to see a for sure center fielder guy. I know, like you said, it doesn't seem like the Phillies like Hazley. I think we all know Quinn isn't the piece that you go out there, okay, I trust my center fielder today. So I try to find a guy like out there. I know previous years we've always been alluded to Jackie Bradley Jr., so I wonder if they'd go out. That'd be a defender I think we can trust for sure. His bat's not always there, but for sure up some defense in that sense. And then a name I threw out there in the chat as well last week was Starling Marte, who's has a really good bounce back season so far. So if we go out and get one of those two, I'd be okay with that as well.
Yeah, look, anything to get Roman Quinn out of the role that he just shouldn't be in. And look, I hate on Roman Quinn a lot for various different reasons. But it's not his fault that he's getting thrust into a starting lineup every single night when they have Adam Hazley there. Like, this is just, you can tell Girardi's intrigue with the speed that he has. And look, for as much as I don't like the guy, the player, not the human, his speed has won us baseball games. Like, he has made things happen for us.
He's useful.
He is.
He's useful.
But he is useful in the 7th inning on.
Yes.
And that's really fucking it. I do not need him to have 68 at-bats at this point during the year when Adam Hazley is 24. I don't ever fucking need that. Phil Gosselin has 63 at-bats, and Adam Hazley has 24. Adam Hazley was a 7th overall pick, both a pitcher and outfielder, who was thought to not be a great defensive outfielder yet, but just an average one. Played a well above average center field for us, out of position even, because the guy's more a corner outfielder, and his bat-to-ball skills are fucking elite. He should be in the lineup. You know, they just seem to absolutely not trust him against lefties, and then even against certain righties, who at this point, whose second pitch isn't a curveball but rather a changeup, they don't trust him there either. So it seems as though he's fallen out of the good graces of you know, at least this current management structure and coaching staff. So a legitimate center fielder would be really, really nice. I don't know who that piece would be. I just know that I don't want it to be Roman Quinn. I respect what Roman Quinn can bring from the 7th inning on, and that's it. Just don't ask the guy to do too much. I also want him to stay healthy, because it's no good to us if he can't stay on the field. And I have a feeling that if he's starting 4 out of every 5 games, he's going to die. He's going to literally die in front of our eyes, and no one needs that. Roman Quinn doesn't need that. But Biscuit, for you, anybody on this roster who would be considered a movable asset that you'd be willing to part ways with, and someone that you would not be willing to part ways with? And let's stick just to the Major League roster and not prospects at this point.
So, as Andrew alluded to earlier, I do think the Phillies are going to get at least one more trade in. I think, you know, trade rumors and, you know, free agency rumors, they're always so speculative, and you don't know what's, you know, true or false, or what's realistic and what's not. But when teams are consistently mentioned all around the place, you know they're at least shopping. So it's very evident that Matt Klentak is on the hunt here. I do believe he'll strike once more. It might be, you know, Klentak's last big deal as a general manager. So
as a man.
as a man. Well, he already got his ball stripped away by.
That's what I'm saying. He's castrated by the man.
But untouchables for me, I don't think there's really, like, obviously, like, the guys who you know aren't going to get moved, like, you know, Nola, JT, maybe JT, God only knows. But Bryce and those kind of guys, I could see Scott Kingery getting moved. I could see, I think the most likely is Adam Hazley. I think in an off shot, maybe Gene or Didi, if what the, you know, circumstance is, but I don't think they're likely to get moved. I think it's most likely going to be Adam Hazley, and depending on what, you know, type of player you're going after, to sweeten the deal, I could see Kingery and a couple names in the minor leagues who I think could really entice other teams. But in terms of players on the active roster, there's not many pitchers I see us moving right now, given our lack of, you know, pitching talent on this team. So it really comes down to those guys, you know. Obviously they're not going to move. I don't think they'll move Reese. Definitely not, you know, Bohm's untouchable at this point. Kutch ain't going anywhere. So, like, you really look at Adam Hazley as our real biggest controllable piece in the major leagues right now. And I think Scott Kingery still has some type of attraction where him going to another team, similar to like what our argument is about Nick Pivetta, maybe going to another team will finally right the ship. So I think that alone kind of gives teams some intrigue if his name's being considered.
Yeah, you know, I think Kingery holds more value than what the city of Philadelphia views him to have. He's a guy that can literally play all over the diamond. You know, he can play 7 positions. Shit, I'm sure if you asked him to catch, he'd probably be pretty good at that too. He's an athlete, you know, through and through, and he just has that flexibility out there. He has a ton of speed. Defensively, He's just, like I said, he's just good everywhere that you put him. But then you can't find a spot for him in the order because the kid just can't hit. So I don't know when you get the opportunity to showcase that speed as an everyday guy. But with the contract that he is on, being controlled for another 3 seasons beyond this one, might even be 4, I can't recall offhand. That's an attractive piece because if you get him right at that money, boy, that is an absolute steal for any organization at this point. I think the problem is that people know Philadelphia is desperate. People know that Matt Klentak is literally desperate. And that will lessen the value of any pieces going out. And that becomes difficult. Do I hope that Scott Kingery is a Philadelphia Philly, this time tomorrow? Yeah, I do. But would I be heartbroken to see him go if it brought over the necessary pieces? No, I think it just misses hair. I think at this point, whatever you got to do. Hazley is another story. I'm still very high on Mickey Moniak. I know a lot of other people are not. But I believe that at 22 years old, there's a lot for Mickey Moniak to show us. And I think it's tough. A 17, 18-year-old kid being drafted number 1 overall, and let alone being drafted into a city like Philadelphia. They're expecting you to be up by 18 and a half years old and be hitting 350. And that's just not the way the process goes for a lot of guys. So because I'm high on him still, would I be heartbroken if Hazley got moved? Not heartbroken. But damn, I would love to see Roman Quinn just go. Just go. I love his speed. I know how valuable he can be from the 7th inning on, but I do not trust anyone to use him appropriately in the Philadelphia Phillies organization. Biscuit.
Question for you both.
Go for it.
The Phillies have not really been heavily linked to any big names so far.
Why
There
would
have been Well, there's been rumblings. There's always rumblings that we're, checking in on Clevenger from the Indians, Joey Gallo, and what's his name? Mike
Minor.
Mike, not Mike Meyer. Mike Minor on the Rangers. So what my question is, with our probably most attractive young prospect now being Bryson Stott, would you include him in any type of deal? No? Not for those guys specifically, but if you can get a Clevenger maybe.
Look, first of all, if you can get a Clevenger, which you're never going to, it would have to be significantly more top of the end pieces to get him here than Bryson Stott. And I love Bryson Stott. I really do. But look, at this point, it appears that we've missed on Kingery. To this point right now, Didi is here for a single year, and he's going to get paid. And at this point, I don't trust John Middleton to cut that check. How many positions are you looking to field next year? And Bryson Stott's a guy who legitimately could probably be up midway through next year. He may even end up being serviceable at some point this fucking year. I don't know. So no, I'm not moving Bryson Stott. And I fall in love with prospects too easy, and I own that, but I'm still not moving Bryson Stott. What about you, Andrew?
I'd say you want to try to keep him. We all know how tight we are with the Phillies front office will be with the money situation. So assuming we do make the right decision and re-sign JT, now you're going to put yourself up against the tax even more, and who knows what other moves next off season. So with Gregorius only being on a 1-year deal, and you have Stott basically ready to come up, instead of giving, I love Gregorius, and I'll take him back gladly, but with the situation we're going to see ourselves money-wise, I think it just makes sense to hold on to Bryson, see what he can do next year when he comes up. That way you're not paying Gregorius 18 to 20 million probably in the offseason, and you can put that money towards another pitcher along with bringing back JT. So I'd say in your best interest for money purposes as well, outside of just talent, I'd say I would definitely keep Bryson Stott this coming year. And I don't think, unless if you're bringing in a proven superstar already, that can stay here for a while. I think, and obviously I don't think it's going to happen, but the only guy I'd maybe think, or I would probably do it for, would be a Francisco Lindor. The guy you'd probably end up signing and bringing in, but obviously I don't think that's going to happen. But
Can you imagine though?
That'd be
Bryce
insane.
Harper out and right, JT behind the dish, Lindor at short. Oh
I don't
my
know.
God.
I'm horny. Just thinking
And I think it's acceptable, man. There
could
it
I
was.
just say something? I love Francisco Lindor. I just
How
have
can you not?
I just have such a thing for players who just look, who I don't want to say like don't try, but just make it look so effortless and just look like they're having such an enriching and fun time playing baseball, and they're good at it. It's one of the reasons I love Kutch. Kutch just looks like he's always having a good time, even when he's not looking that great at baseball. He's always having fun, and when he's on, he's having fun doing it, man. And that's just to have that kind of spirit on your team, man. That's what makes baseball baseball to me.
Love it. Yeah, man. Look, when Kutch came in and did that breakdancing spin as the run crossed the plate, I thought I was going to pee myself laughing.
And that's
making some of
something.
those. Go ahead.
Well, that's something I believe it was talked about. Maybe with Andrew, you, and Boric a few shows ago about this team not really looking like they have a lot of fun. I don't know if that's something we discussed, but I discussed it with someone. And then you look at the last, 5 days and seeing the break dance and seeing, Scott Kingery do his little dance running the bases. Like it's clear that they're starting to get within themselves that they could be a serious contending team. And I think that's starting to show in their confidence. It almost reminds me of the beginning of last season with all of their handshakes, and it looked like they were just unbeatable. And it's just great to see that swagger back.
Yeah, I don't know if it's I mean, obviously winning solves everything. But I think I forget who it was. It was either Todd Zalewski or Jim Salisbury. They tweeted it after the walk-off. It was like, not only was this huge for the team in general just to get the win, but you can clearly show how much they've grown with each other and how much of like a brotherhood it's starting to become as the season continues to go on. You can just tell how much more they're there for each other and stuff just from the emotions after that win. And I think one of the funniest things about this team is, I'm sure you guys see it, but the Gregorius tweets after a win.
He's amazing.
Like, I mean, I'm not a big emoji person, but the emojis he throws out there, and then whatever happens in the game he throws out there, it's hilarious. And you don't even know what the emojis mean at times. Like,
nope. I try. It's every night after a win, I try to decipher what those are, and I believe at this point I have only clearly deciphered 2. But I love it. How can you not?
Yeah, I agree. I'll have to send you the tweet because somebody actually did start to decipher. There's like, here's a Gregorius decipher emoji tweet or something like that, and it had them had like 10 of them broken down or whatever. So I'll try to find it again and send it to you guys.
Definitely do. All right, so we're approaching 48 minutes now at this point on a pod that we believed was going to be fairly short. I feel like every time I host, this is what happens. This is why I shouldn't typically host. But so we're going to go to some final thoughts here. And like I said, the evening crew is going to kind of look ahead for the games coming up. We talked a little bit about the winning streak that we're currently on. Both us and the evening pod, we're going to talk a little bit about trades, but we were going to focus in on the offense for our final point. We gave them the pitching because I didn't want to talk about it. But we've seen Kutch start to look a little bit more comfortable out there. At the plate. We've seen Rhys Hoskins start to kind of shed some of the habits that made him on almost a liability from a power hitter standpoint, not a 2-hole hitter standpoint, but a power hitter standpoint, and really start to make really good and solid contact again. Like I said, Kingery finally had a hit. Holy shit. It's been 13 years since he had one. And that's huge. Going forward with the offense the rest of this season, if you guys had to kind of pinpoint it down to a duo, you can use only one of JT and Bryce and then someone else, or you can pick 2 completely separate pieces. Who do you think are the most trustworthy pieces at this point to do their job on the offensive side of the ball for the Philadelphia Phillies? So I'm going to start with Biscuit, man. Go ahead.
Bryce and Alec Boehm. And here's why.
Okay.
Bryce has been great in the 3-hole all year. Depending on the month he has, it's fair to say that he will be in the MVP conversation by the end of the season if he continues on the pace that he's on. And then in terms of Alec Boehm, I think this lineup really started to turn a corner, and that correlated or coincided with his arrival at the big league level. you can speculate that it might have had an impact on some of the guys who could lose playing time at the hands of his call up, and that might have lit a little bit of a spark in guys like Gene or Scott Kingery or maybe even Reese. But at the same time too, I think one of the things we could look back on last year's lineup and say was that they really needed that one more bat who just really kept the line moving. It feels like Alec Boehm can be that guy. He's been just as great as advertised for me offensively, if not better. I really do think he's that guy, that you have in like the 6 or 7 spot, that when you need that big hit after Didi to keep the line rolling and get to, whoever's at the bottom of that lineup, like it's worked out. And it's really paid dividends for the Phillies over really since he's been called up. So if there's two guys who I look to kind of keep doing what they're doing, it's those two guys, and I think if they're at least satisfactory or up to par what they've done so far, the Phillies are just going to keep scoring runs. And as we've talked about, that's their best key to success.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I think that's the correct answer. Not that I think that there aren't more than one correct answer. I'm sure there are. But those are the names that were on my head as well. So, Andrew, who do you have? Is it different from Biscuit? Do you have different reasons?
Yeah, I'm going to take a different approach to it, and I'm going to go with, honestly, the top 2 guys at the lineup, in McCutchen and Hoskins. I think you know Harper and JT are going to be there. You know what you have in those guys. You know they're going to continue to hit. And the problem is this team will go as far as McCutchen and Hoskins can get on base. And I know we don't always like to see the walks, but I read a stat the other day. Out of Bryce Harper, out of all of his home runs, Hoskins has been on base for every single one of them except for 2 home runs. And I think that's big, obviously, because if these guys aren't getting on base, you're not going to get those RBI chances. As simple as something like yesterday in that first inning against the Braves. McCutchen gets on, eventually gets the third for Harper, and even when Harper's struggling, he's going to have fly balls. So he kind of gets the sacrifice fly in that first inning, and he's still able to provide while he's struggling. And I think that's where you really saw the offense when they're not at their best is when McCutchen and Hoskins, or whoever's at the top of the order, but right now, obviously, it's been those two all year. Those guys aren't getting on base because JT and Harper are hitting all year. So if you can't trust the top 2 guys to get on, you're in a lot of trouble because it's going to turn into just a bunch of hits in their runs. So I like the McCutchen-Hoskins duo as being the biggest two to kind of keep this team going.
I think it's a really valid point. And I think both answers are really smart. On one hand, you have the set that's there that have been producing and that we believe at this point, we feel fairly confident that production will continue. But the wild cards really are the veteran that in Kutch, who we believe was stabilizing the head of this lineup here. Last year, the offense took a huge fall when he went down with injury. And then Rhys Hoskins, a guy who, as a 2-hole hitter, he does a lot of the things that you want him to do. He's a very good 2-hole hitter, as much as it makes us, or pains us to sit there and see. But he's doing a job. And if he can do that job and not compromise the results of this job, and also add in the aspects of, hey, we were counting on you to be the second power bat in this lineup, regardless of where you were hitting. If he can merge those two worlds of his and make them coexist, I think you have an absolutely dangerous superstar, that could be budding. I don't particularly believe in Rhys Hoskins like that. I know Stephanie does, so I have to say it. Otherwise, she's going to slap the shit out of me. But look, both answers are really smart. For me, it's definitely Gene Segura and Roman Quinn. If we could just see them at 1-2, I think the season's saved. No, but like I said, with both of those responses from the offensive standpoint, there's a lot to be excited about. We get to continue to watch the productivity of 2 potential MVP candidates in Bryce and JT. What looks to be our first hit in terms of drafting in former number 3 overall pick Alec Boehm. And then 2 veterans at this point. We can consider Reese a veteran atop the lineup, making it all work. So this lineup's going to keep scoring runs. We think it's been hitting weather all damn year. It'd be great if it continues. And I think it's the only way that we stay relevant in a potential postseason conversation. So with that, let's go to a final thought. It could be on anything at all. I know that during this conversation, I have observed 2 different things and my final thoughts that I will get to in just a moment. But I'm going to start with you guys. So, Biscuit, what is your final thought?
Sign JT, Real Muto, Jacob Tyler, the best catcher in baseball, future Hall of Famer. I don't care what you have to say, Sean. It doesn't matter. He's clutch. Look. Clentak. I'm being real with you. I know you listen to the pod.
Hey, he's not doing anything else.
You know, I'm giving you your nuts back, man. Just sign that. just sign him, bro. Like, it's please. I'll say this. The Phillies better have a damn good plan that really makes me happy with what they're going to do with that money they could be giving to JT. They better be turning water into wine if they don't get that done, because I'm going to be an unhappy camper. Look, the guy's fucking great. And, you know, the bat really is, like, it is what it is. It's a good bat, but it truly, you know, for a catcher, it makes it an elite bat. But at the same time, what he offers you defensively, he's just too good. You don't give up. You don't give up what you gave up to not sign him. Like, I know that might not be the best reasoning behind it, but, like, he's just such an elite player. And when you have that, you shouldn't let it go. And don't let money be an issue here.
I love it. I can always count on that rant at the end. It's beautiful. I
give you your balls, Clentak. Give me JT in return.
Jesus. Biscuit just standing at the door, ringing it with a bag. Like an old mob hit. Jesus. All right, Andrew. Look, that's a lot to beat on that final one. But what is your final
thought? We just skip my final thought. I think we just got to end on that.
I'm good to end with that. All right, so that's going to be it here for the Chasing the Pennant day side of the Split Squad doubleheading shows that we have for you today here on Sunday, which is interesting. Normally our Sunday shows are filled with a lot of nonsense and full team. So I think this is pretty cool going 2 shows here. Hopefully the night side comes through and actually records. We'll see. But for Andrew, for the currently holding 2 additional balls, Biscuit, and myself, Shane, we are Chasing the Pennant podcast, and we will see you again in a few hours with the evening side.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still have me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.